I'm your host, Mr. Twillerbark, here with another strange and unusual tale of the place of mysterious ships, vanishing planes, and strange phenomenon. I'm talking, of course, the Bermuda Triangle. Chapter 1. The Realm of Unfathomable Mysteries. Ever since the first seamen set sail thousands of years ago, the vast Carapace oceans have been source of myth and mystery, place populated with strange creatures and possessed inexplicable powers. Seafarers everywhere have spun yarns of mermaids, beings that are part fish, part human. The Greeks told of the enchantress Ciri, who lured unwary sailors to their doom. Norsemen sang of kraken, 200-foot-long monsters with sharp scales and flaming eyes, that smashed ships and killed sailors. At least as the 18th century, Carolus Linnaeus, the father of modern botany, took kraken seriously. Sorry, I had a frog in my throat. They say that if they were to lay hold of the largest man of war, he wrote, kraken would pull it to power. When Christopher Columbus first reached the Sargasso Sea midway across the Atlantic, his superstitious crew feared its thick yellow, brown, and green seaweed would trap them forever. Far more recent in the fear of the so-called Bermuda Triangle, an atmospheric area located somewhere east of Bermuda. One student of the unexplained, Ivan T. Sanderson, postulated the Bermuda Triangle is one of the dozen areas called vile vortices. Another infamous one is the so-called Devil's Sea off the coast of Japan, where little understood forces are said to cause ships to vanish without a trace. Even airplane pilots flying over these areas have reported malfunctions, gyros, dead radios, visual anomalies, and inexplainable time warps. Some of the mysterious incidents that have occurred at sea are recounted on the following pages. Riddle the Mary Celeste. On December 4th, 1872, the bark De Graaf was sailing in the Atlantic east of the horizon when she came upon the Brighton Mary Celeste. Both ships have sailed from New York a month before. The Mary Celeste, with the captain's wife and baby daughter as passengers. The De Graaf, with the captain and his crew and 7 aboard. Clearly, there was something badly amiss aboard the Mary Celeste. Her sails were tattered and hanging away. No one stood at the wheel. When crewmen from De Graaf went aboard and called out greetings, the only reply was silence. No one could be found. The lifeboats were gone. Apparently it had been launched. The bicycle was knocked between launched. The binnacle was knocked. The binalcy was knocked out of place, and the compass was shattered. The bow of the direct ship bore 6-foot gashes just above waterline before, but otherwise the ship appeared sound and seaworthy. Below deck was a chilling scene that suggests hurried flight. Toys lay on the captain's bed, as if a child had been interrupted at play. The food supply and cargo were undisturbed. The ship's log remained intact, but its last entry, made 9 days earlier, gave no hint of impending trouble. Why did the captain abandon ship? How did he and his companions vanish without a trace? Could insanity, mutiny, fatality, instrument, hijacking, possessing, tornado, or a disturbance in the sea floor have been involved? The captain of the Garrett ordered some of his crew to sail Mary Celeste to Gilbert, where a British vice-admiral court of inquiry raised all those questions and found no answers. More than 100 years later, the Mary Celeste is believed by many to have been doomed by the inexplicable evil that lurks in the Bermuda Triangle. A royal encounter with the Flying Dutchman. The peridot sky was rounded the coast from Melbourne to Sydney, Australia, on July 11th, 1881. Suddenly, from the lookout on the forecast came word of a vessel closing in on the post below. Officers and crew alike, 13 in all, crowded the rails to see for themselves. According to the journals of 2 royal midshipmen who were aboard, Prince George, late King George V of England, and his brother, Prince Albert Victor. The vessel appeared as a strange red light, as a phantom ship all aglow. Her masts, spars and sails stood out in a strong relief, but moments later the apparition vanished, and there remained no vestige nor any signs of whatever any material ship. The witness believed that they had seen the Flying Dutchman, the legendary ghost ship that has haunted sailors for centuries with numerous variations. The legend goes like this: a Dutchman captain drove his ship around Cape Horn in a savage gale against the pleas of his terrified crew. He begged him to put into port. The Holy Ghost appeared. The satanic captain fired his pistol and cursed the Lord for his blasphemy. The captain was condemned to sail the seas for eternity, never to put into port. Sailors say an encounter with the Flying Dutchman bodes disaster. So it was for the HMS Inconstant. The royal journals recorded that later that morning the unlucky lookout fell from the fore topmast cross streets and was smashed to atoms, and upon reaching port the admiral of the ship was stricken with fatal illness. It would seem that even the presence of royalty could stave off the curse of the Flying Dutchman. The fateful mission of the Bermuda Triangle. At 2:10 p.m. on December 5th, 1945, the 5 Avenger torpedo bombers rode off the runway of the Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station. Flight instructor Lieutenant Charles G. Taylor was leading 13 crewmen of Flight 19 on a routine navigation training exercise, but ominously the course lay over an area bound approximately by the Bermuda Triangle. Florida and Puerto Rico, in what is now known as the Bermuda Triangle, where so many ships and aircrafts have met mysterious fates. Flight 19 began smoothly enough, but at 3:40 p.m., an unsettling message from Taylor to another plane in his squadron was intercepted by Lieutenant Robert Cox, who was airborne over Fort Lauderdale on another exercise. "What is your trouble?" Cox asked Taylor. "Both my compasses are out, and I am trying to find Fort Lauderdale," Taylor replied. For the next 45 minutes, Cox tried to accentuate Taylor's position and direct him to land by orienting him toward the sun, but although it was clear day, Taylor seemed unable to find it. Finally, Taylor's transmission faded until it stopped. Then, unexpectedly, Cox's radio went dead, too. He returned to the field at Fort Lauderdale, the ground station at Port Everglades had meanwhile established intermittent contact with the troubled Flight 19, confirmed Cox's observations. Finally, at about 5:15, the ground station heard a forlorn message from Flight 19. "We'll fly west until we hit the beach and run out of gas." The authorities of Fort Lauderdale ordered a search, and before long, Mariner flying boat was in the air with another 13 crewmen, but the Mariner was not heard from again. For the next 5 days, other search planes flew over the 930 stories over the area, but not a scrap of wreckage from either the Avengers or the Mariner was ever recovered. Most analysts blame this as another disappearance that have occurred in the area on the normal hazards of the sea and air, but students of the occult blame the disaster on malevolent powers said to flourish in the Bermuda Triangle. A leap across space and time. It was the strange cigar-shaped cloud, he recalled, that gave Bruce Guerin Jr. the first hint that his flight on December 4th, 1970 would be out of the ordinary. With his father as a co-pilot, Jerome had just taken off in his Beechcraft Bonanza from Andros Island in the Bahamas, bound for Palm Beach, Florida. Jerome remembers accelerating quickly to avoid the thick cloud, but it seemed to rise to meet him and then to envelop him, spying a small tunnel through the cloud. He dived down, hoping to exit into clear sky on the other side, but this was no ordinary cloud. The walls were glowing white, with small white clouds rotating clockwise. around the interior. Jerome later recalls the plane seemed to pick up unnatural speed, and for several seconds Jerome and his father experienced weightlessness. Then the airplane exited from the tunnel and entered a greenish-white haze, not the blue sky he had seen ahead. Trying to fix his position, Jerome was startled to observe his compass rotating counterclockwise. His navigation equipment would no longer function, and he was unable to make contact with radar control. Through the haze he spotted an island, and calculating his flight time through it must be the Bimini Keys. Minutes later, Jerome recognized it as Miami Beach instead, but how could that be? Little more than half expected flight time he had elapsed. Landing at Palm Beach, Jerome checked his clock. A trip that normally took him about 75 minutes had taken only 45 minutes. And he had burned 12 fewer gallons of fuel than usual. In the years that followed, Jerome considered himself among the lucky who lived to tell an unaccountable journey through the Bermuda Triangle, having been the victim of an apparent time warp. And there you have it. Those were just some of the tales of the Bermuda Triangle. That's why I applaud to you, dear reader. If you go to the Bermuda Triangle, enter at your own risk, 'cause it may be your loss.